welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how I construct and style a wig. So the first thing I'm going to do is place the frontal onto the front of the cap. Always make sure the middle of the frontal lines up with the middle of the cap. Now I'm going to pin each side of the frontal. You want to make sure the thick lining of the frontal lines up with the bottom of the cap. When you're pinning the thick lining down, the only thing that should be hanging off is the ear flap. So now you're going to pull the other side of the frontal to the other side of the cap. You want to make sure you do this pretty tight so that there's no bulging in the frontal. I'm going to show you how it looks when it's wrong. You do not want the thick lining to hang off the side of the cap. In order for only the ear flap to hang over, you're going to have to put a curve in the frontal and pull it back to the back of the cap. So now I'm going to add an extra pin. That way when I'm sewing down, the frontal does not bulge. Now I'm making my first stitch. Keep in mind that when you're stitching around the sides, there's an elastic band sewn into the cap. You don't want to sew through this band because it will take away from the stretchiness of the wig. Instead, sew right above the elastic band. When stitching, you don't want to stitch more than an inch apart. The closer you stitch, the more secure the stitching will be, and the more secure the wig will be. Right here, I'm showing you how I knot the bottom of the first piece of thread. I usually do 3 knots to form one big knot. I also have another technique of how I secure the end of my first stitch, but I will show you that later. I normally sew a frontal all the way across from start to finish, but the only reason why I switched sides because I felt like you guys could see this side a little better. Once you're done sewing, you should be able to pull at the frontal and it shouldn't lift up anywhere. Now I'm just going to turn it around to make sure the middle of the frontal is still in the middle. When I sew my wefts, I use the fold over method. Basically, this method prevents you from having to cut the wefts, which lowers shedding, and it also makes it easier to reuse the hair. When sewing a weft, I always press the needle through the weft on my first and last stitch, and this just helps to give extra security. So here's my second method of securing the end of the thread with a knot. So in this method, I simply just do the knot after I pull the needle through, and I actually like this method better. As you can see throughout the rest of the weft, I just go underneath the weft and through the cap. It kind of looks like I'm not pulling the needle through the cap all the way, but I actually am. The mesh cap is very hard to see on camera. So the fold over method is simply just folding over the weft, and when I fold it over, I pin it to the other side so that it'll stay. So you want to hold the folded weft flat, and then you just sew through the weft just like you would do with your first stitch anywhere else, and then make your knot and you're good to go. So now I'm going to show you guys how I lay all the tracks. The further you go up, the more you're going to curve the track to line up with the frontal. Once you're at the top, you're going to measure out where your weft is going to lay, and then you're going to cut the weft to that size. Now I'm sewing the weft into the thick lining that's in the back of the frontal because you want it to be seamless. You don't want any space between your weft and your frontal. Now we are finally done with all the stitching, and what we're going to do is cut off the excess cap. So when you're doing this, just be sure not to cut where any of the stitching is. When I'm plucking, it's kind of random. The main thing you want to do is break the harsh line that's always in the front. So once you break that harsh line, then afterwards you just want to make a graduated hairline to where it's thin and it gets thicker as it goes back. So I actually had to bleach the knots off the camera. What I hated about this frontal is that there were red knots everywhere, and some of them I could not get, so now I'm just plucking any of the red knots I see. And I also like to pluck my hairline to get a more realistic hairline. Please excuse all the hair color and hair glue that's on my wig head. I actually made a quick weave wig and I had to color it and of course glue it to the cap, and some of the glue got on there. So it's just a mess. I need to buy another one, but it gets the job done for now. So now we are at the fun part, the styling. I always lay the top of my frontal with a hot comb because frontals come really bulky. This gives it a more flatter and natural looking appearance. Now I am so pissed because I thought my camera was rolling and it was not, but I'm basically just styling with a 1/2 inch curling iron, and this is a curling iron I use when I want more of a beachy wave look. Now that's a beautiful wig. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you stay blessed, stay safe, and I will see you guys on the next video.